Okay, so first of all, just sitting and giving yourself time to settle in. In the first instance, although this can get very detailed and often does in Tai Chi, but it's a general sense of being aware of how you're sitting and making any changes that feel appropriate, with the general emphasis on feeling supported in your chair. And that may mean sitting back. So if you sit right back in the chair, try not to lean back, maybe put a cushion or something behind you. You want, if anything, to be slightly forwards. On the side here, I just tilt forward slightly. So I feel about a third of my weight in my feet. That can be quite tricky. That's a very subtle feeling. So one of the ways that we can emphasize that is just by raising our heels. It's much stronger, but it's going to tighten your calf muscles up fairly quickly. So after a while, just lower them down, but hopefully keep some kind of memory of the feeling of your weight settling in your feet, so that your feet and your legs are recognized as part of what's supporting. Your back will begin to support the front of your body, so belly, solar plexus, chest and shoulders beginning to release their tightness a little bit. And as you get used to this and as you settle into this, hopefully the odd glimpse of this feeling of being supported from within the body, from the bones of your legs, pelvis, skeleton and rib cage. And that can just be a reminder that we don't actually need this stiff, tight feeling that we've often become quite habituated to. And just rubbing your hands together. Tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder and your arm. On the other side. And the upper part of the chest. Your belly. And finally, the legs. Now, sit back so that, again, you feel supported, this time predominantly by the chair. Remind yourself of what it's like when you are supported, how you're able to release some areas. How you're able to release some areas of tightness and stiffness, but others will persist. These habits of holding ourselves tight don't necessarily just go away. But focus on that feeling of being supported. It's one of the key things, I think, in Tai Chi, where we begin to get a sense of being able to support ourselves, sitting back, sitting up, standing up, in response to whatever forces are acting on our body, which in the solo movements are predominantly going to be pull of gravity. And if we can find a way to sort of harmonize with that, we begin to create an environment within which movement is less restricted. And that could be the if you like, the external movement, the choreography of the different exercises, but also, and as we've become more familiar with the movements, increasingly, I think, the sense of movement within the body, the patterns of expansion and contraction, the flow of the energy, maybe, for instance, as you sit back here, just an awareness of the rhythm and the flow in your breathing, not breathing in any particular way, but just noting if the breathing settles down. These become part of the constant accompaniments underpinning everything that we do in the art. So coming back up to the upright position. When we move, we want to move in such a way that doesn't reinforce the tightness, the stiffness. So a gentle approach to the movement, one that is not primarily concerned with range of movement. And a good starting point is just to have a sense of how much space there seems to be within the body, the movements that we make. And to begin with, at least, just content for the movement that we make to fill that space. So then just begin by turning your head a little bit, side to side, going through the different areas of the body to mobilize them, certainly, to give them a chance to loosen up, for the energy, for the blood to begin to flow more freely, but also so that we can begin to build up this picture of what's happening within the body, observing almost the ebb and the flow of the movement. So if on a calm day you sit by the sea or by a pond or something like that, there's movement in the water. It doesn't sort of push hard. It seems to fill the spaces that are available. Hands in front of your shoulders. There may be occasions when we try and move a little bit further by releasing tightness, maybe by changing our posture or how we're doing the movement. But the starting point is this sense of a harmonious movement, not straining within the body. So it's an approach to movement that needs to be practiced. And then going forwards. Your hands come down to your sides, rotating your arms. And then winding around. And back the other way. Rest your hands. We move our attention now to the lower part of the body. This too is something which is a constant in Tai Chi. And just consider that actually, from an evolutionary point of view, as human beings, we're hardwired to pay more attention to the upper part of our body, in particular our arms and and our hands. So this switch in perspective is not to ignore the hands, but rather to change, in a sense, where we're looking out from. And this is again one of the ongoing factors that we work with in Tai Chi. So feeling again the majority of your weight back in your hips, tilt your pelvis forwards, feel more of your weight flowing down into your feet, and then use your legs, push yourself back up. On the side, something like this. The other thing that will help you to come back up is a feeling of being pulled downwards through your hips. Actually, the pull of gravity, but imagine somebody taking hold of your trousers and just pulling you back up. Observe what's happening in the upper part of your body. Note whether you're doing something like this or pulling your head back or tightening your shoulders. And try and reduce that. So it puts more emphasis on what's happening in the lower part of the body. Not to exclude, as I say, the upper body, but rather to get this appropriate order of movement. This is important from the point of view of, if you like, the art of Tai Chi, the movement, the energy comes from the ground, amongst other places, but predominantly from the ground. It also has a very practical element that if you had a pile of boxes in your room and you decided to move them, if you simply pushed on the top box, it would move a little bit, but then probably the whole pile would collapse. If you move the bottom box, then it would move along in line. So from the point of view of our everyday movements, we stay more in line and more stable when we learn to move from the ground, from our feet, from our hips. So the mental switch is a really important one. So what we might think of as the mind training, if you like, the meditational aspect of Tai Chi, to first of all gather our attention in so we do have this clear picture of what's happening in the body, and then to direct our attention and our intention correctly is a crucial part of this. Turn slightly so more of your weight goes into one leg. And that gathering of our attention that I was talking about, when we bring our attention into our body and note the posture, the movements, whatever else is going on, also goes a long way towards cultivating that sense of stillness or calmness. That is also one of the great benefits of the art. Turn in the other direction. And then just rolling your pelvis around, drawing your head and shoulders around in a small circle. Don't concern yourself with what's happening in your shoulders and head beyond simply observing. If it's not a circle, don't start to strain or to adjust your shoulders, but rather think about what's happening in your pelvis. Change direction. Come back to the center and just to Engage your legs a bit, step out, and then pull back. Try and plant the whole foot on the ground, leaving your knee just a little bit bent. And on the other side. Okay. Bring your feet back into position. So now we do bring our arms and our upper body in to the movement. But remember what I said, that can be a distraction. In many ways, we could spend much longer on the exercises that we've just done. But I'll leave that to your own practice. You can, if you practice these movements regularly, if you practice in this way regularly from the ground upwards, you'll find that after a while it becomes much more natural. Now hold your hands down at your sides, turn your hands palm forwards. Most of your weight back in your hips until you tilt forwards, and at the same time just rotating. The transfer of your weight from hips to feet, maybe from one side of your body to another, depending on the exercise, becomes the constant backdrop to all the movements in one way or another. In this first series of exercises, that is really very clear, I think. So to begin with, we have this very clear formula that, you know, our weight sinks down, it moves from one foot to another, that produces a movement and energy that we then shape through primarily our arms and our hands. But the shape is also very much an intention. So as you get to know the exercises better, that too becomes smoother. This time, leaving your hands facing back. So as you go back, they swing from your shoulders. This fisherman castanet. You see, if you watch my fingers, they drop down, gently curve up. And I'm just allowing that to happen. I don't want to get to here and then go to there. I want to increase my range of movement, which is not an unworthy aim by any means. Then I want to think about, am I moving correctly and enough in the lower part of the body? Is my weight moving efficiently? And then think about what's happening in my back and my sides. And give myself an opportunity to just note patterns of expansion and contraction that I can start to bring my intention to. So the movement is built up from inside. Tai Chi and Qigong are labeled as internal arts, and that sense of building the movement from within is one of the meanings of that. We increase our range of movement not by straining, but by encouraging these small movements that coordinate within the body. Next movement, rolling the ball, builds on that. From this position here, notice the angle between my body and my arm. And as I come back, that doesn't change to begin with. At the top, my elbow just drops. It's like there's a ball underneath my arms, and I keep my arms on the ball and just sit back. That doesn't give me a huge movement. But then I begin to notice here, for instance, there's a feeling of expansion in my belly and my solar plexus up in towards my chest. And if I can use my intention to focus on that, to build on that, that will start to move my arms more, and so on. This time, as you come back, turn your hands palm in and open your chest to push your elbows out, and then chest contract, bring them in. That will draw your fingers apart and then pull them back together. The exercise, pigeon spreads its wings. You may find it comes quite easily to take a breath in when you do this with that expansion in the chest. It's not necessarily going to work that way for everybody, but try it. Never force your breathing. So the pattern of movement, of expansion and contraction between the front and back of your body. One more. It's time just leaving your hands in front of your hips. Your elbows still go out a little bit and press it forwards. Just letting the hands curve up, pushing wave. Still a little bit of expansion and contraction in your chest and your upper back. So a principal driver for the movement, of course, is going to be your weight moving. You can see quite distinctive there. My arm swings up. The angle of the elbow doesn't really change that much. A little bit extension, but not much. But again, there's also this opening and closing of the chest, certainly giving the exercise a stronger feel. And helping to maintain that spacious quality within the body for the flow of the energy. Because we're not having to strain muscles like our trapezius and the upper back and so on. We retain the space. Do one more of these. And then bring your hands back, roll your fingers into a hollow fist and punch with both fists. This one is different again. When we come back, our elbow comes back towards our hip, but not behind it. I can only do this with one arm, the back of the chair, but you do it with both arms if you can. So if I do nothing with my arm, this is how much it will move. So you can see there's a fair bit of movement there. If all I do is extend my arm and contract, that's what will happen. I extend my arm and move my weight forwards, look where my hand ends up. So I'll try and do both of those together And at the same time, as I come back, I rotate my arms so their palm would be up if they were open, and then palm down. So it's like a spring being compressed and then released. Now this time, open your fingers, turn them out, wind out, and finish with the press forwards again. A little bit more open in the chest than with pushing wave. This means that we're engaging, ideally, our whole body in any one particular stage of any one movement. Our weight is moving, so our feet, our legs, our hips are all part of the movement. We're tilting forwards and backwards, our back and our spine are part of that. There's the patterns of expansion, contraction, all the way through the upper body. All beginning to come together in the one movement. And with that, the intention, the gathering of our attention. One more round of this. Now turn your hands palm down. Turn a little bit to your left, tilt forwards. Then turn back to your right to draw your hands across. Come back, settle in a bit. Turn the other way. So this is the first exercise where we're not going straight forwards and backwards. And the key thing here is to turn in the center of your body. So once again, a lower perspective on what's going on. So if, for instance, if I just do this with one hand, if I place my other hand on my center, my belly, you can see how it's moving. I turn, and you can see how that guides my other hand around. One more time. And rest. So in all of those exercises, there's a very clear, if you like, mechanical physical relationship that encourages us to continue to move from the lower part of the body, and all that implies, as I talked about earlier, stability, flow of the movement, the build up of the movement, the build up of the energy. The next set of exercises, the same is true, but it's less subtle, it's less obvious. They're all based on a vertical movement rather than a horizontal movement. So what's going to happen now is the first exercise involves the arms coming up, lifting the ball and pressing down. I don't want you to do it like this, but just watch for a moment. I turn my hands palm up. I imagine the ball in my arms. And what I do is I push down, effectively push down through my feet and through my hips at the same time. And if I do that quite strongly, then what will happen is this. I'll stand up and then I drop down again. that would be really tiring to do too many of those. So we're not going to do any. But you want to feel that there is a little bit of a push coming from below. Another way of thinking of this, going back to this exercise, just simply tilting the pelvis, feeling the weight flow from hips to feet and back. This is like a wave coming from hips and buttocks through the leg, draining down through my feet, and then draining back again. Now, if instead of alternating from one to the other, I produce the wave from both at the same time, they'll come together in the middle and push each other up. So you can't see it happening from the outside, but you can begin to feel it. So from here, gentle pressure downwards through feet and hips, and a rising movement, a rising energy through your back and the front of your body, pushing your arms up, and then reversing that, going down. A third way of looking at this, and this might work better for those of you who've been doing this with me for a while. Again, it's a little bit more subtle. Involves imagining here in your belly something like a ball, a squidgy ball or balloon. And as gravity draws your weight down, the weight of your head, the weight of your shoulders down, when it reaches the ball, it compresses the ball. And then the ball expands and pushes your arms up. But it will also push downwards into the ground. And whichever image, whichever idea you use, all of them involve this idea of a connection to the ground, what we call the root in Tai Chi. And so one habit of movement that we begin to develop with these exercises is that we could say that the prelude to any movement of extension, whether it be to lift up or to reach out, is always going to be a moment of connection downwards to root down. And again, that has a massive impact on how we generally move, and in particular our stability. So it's useful to think about these exercises in these terms for a variety of reasons, not least because actually it starts to affect the whole of the way that we move. Now turn your hands out. Again, that downward movement one way or another. This time, the expansion pushes your arms out. The exercise, the wild goose. Expand a little bit more on your sides. These are all ideas that when we come to the standing, sort of increase their significance, because obviously when we're standing, stability and alignment are going to be much more important. We will no longer have the use of the chair. But they're also very subtle in the chair. We can start to get a glimpse of them in the chair, but they're much clearer to us in stand. Change again. This time, just let your weight come forward a little bit. Allow your hands to circle in front of your knees. Come back. There's that downward movement in one way or another, pushing your arms around for parting the crowns. And then stay back, let your hands drop down. The next time you feel that sense of a rising movement, a rising energy, just on one side of your body, pushing your arm up. This is dragon plucks the stars from the sky. So we think in terms of energy, momentum, movement. There's any number of ways that energy moves through our system. When we breathe in fresh oxygen, the food that we eat. We gain energy from the environment around us in various ways. They're all significant. They all become part of the movement. But they clear, distinctive source of energy in Tai Chi and Qigong is through that connection to the ground. So the rooting down, the process that makes that connection for us, has both an energetic significance as well as the more kind of what we might think of as a mechanical significance in terms of posture and stability. So dragon plucks the stars from the sky. One more on each side. And then both hands together, this time feeling the lengthening more up through the center of your back. Always back down. Again, maybe that sense of a compression in the center of your body. Expanding again, this time directing the arms out. And then back. Your body filling up and then emptying is one way this might be described. Again, people more familiar with these movements, you'll realize that that rhythm of filling and emptying is a lot more subtle and nuanced than just a simple sort of one stage of filling, one stage of emptying. Newer people, don't be in a hurry to recognize that, but just do know that the practice, our ability to recognize these small subtle changes within the body and to influence them through our intention is one of the things that we learn to build, to cultivate in the art. From this position, extend one foot. Again, knees slightly bent, toes are up. Tilt forwards again, this time keeping most of your weight back. Hips drop back, shoulders follow, your arms follow on that. Scooping the sea and looking at the sky. It shows another advantage to moving in this way, that from this low position, rather than straining in our back, pull our head up, allowing our hips to drop back, allowing gravity to draw our hips back, brings us to the upright position, a lot less strain, a lot more fluidity. Using the pull of gravity to help us come to the upright position. Then changing, roll your fingers into a hollow fist again, and this time a little bit of a push from your hips. As though you're trying to, imagine there's a ball coming in towards you and you're going to try and head it. You push from your hips, buttocks, let the head go forwards, and then that movement, draw your arms over, grasping the tiger's ears. And then the same two movements, the opposite foot forwards. scooping the sea, looking at the sky. We're told in Tai Chi that the movement is rooted in our feet. That sense of connection downwards as we sink our center of gravity and feel the movement, the energy arising. It's released, transmitted through our legs and of course through our hips in case of the seated exercises, the movement of the weight. Directed by the center of the body, we've turned, we're rolling the center of the body forwards and then expressed in the arms. Not just in the arms here, almost the same movement, but we change the intention. Once our head, remember, go forwards and up to draw arms over for grasping the tiger's ears. Notice how, as your head begins to move, you get an expansion in your chest, which then contracts, and so on and so forth. Again, it's not as simple as to say that the movement goes from hips to hands. There's the whole of the upper body in between, and we begin to just recognize how that works for us, how that can be used for us. One more time. Good. Bring feet back. Once again, just rubbing your hands together. Tapping over your face. And then over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder, arm. And on the other side. And the upper part of your chest. And then your belly. And finally, wake your legs up a bit. Tapping your legs. Push your heels up. Again, to get the legs moving a little bit. And then circling around. And back the other way. So, then come into the standing position. Now, as always, what I've been describing is, in a way, quite kind of simplistic. But it's not something that we want to lose touch with. It doesn't have to be complicated. Those of you who've been doing this for some time, you'll know that that simple expansion and contraction isn't just the legs bending and straightening and so on and so forth, but it involves all sorts of subtle qualities of patterning of movement or flow of energy, particularly in the upper part of the body. And these are all things that we can bring our intention to. This is how we begin to learn to influence the movements of our body from within. And that requires that focused attention. We learn to do this. It's a straightforward, simple task in some ways, but we have to have that attention and awareness of what's going on. You can't work creatively with something that you don't recognize, for instance. So we're constantly drawing our attention back into our body, gathering our attention in our body, once again in the lower part. And we observe what's going on. Sometimes I'll give you details about this part of the body or whatever. I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to leave you to the best of your current ability to just observe the changes within the body. What we're going to do, we're going to do the 3 exercises we did in the chair, rooting down, wild goose and parting the clouds in a little sequence. But it starts with your hips sinking down and being able to drop your center of gravity. So have your feet below your hips and just let gravity, I'll show you from the side, pull your hips back, not too far. I'll do it quite big so you can see what I'm doing. And at a certain point, your legs will push you up. And then gravity takes over and you sink down. Your body expands from the root and contracts back into it. Now, this time, bring your hands around again as though you're cradling the ball. Let the expansion push your elbows out. And then, like you're pressing the ball down in water. Turn your hands palm out into the wild goose. And contracting. And then letting your hands drop down and parting the clouds. And just observe the changes. And again, people with more experience, remember those changes can be very, very subtle. Involve a slight feeling of expansion between your vertebrae or your ribs, for instance, maybe even more subtle than that. If you haven't done this before, or if you're new to this, or you could just choose to do it this way, you might want to focus on the feeling of the muscles in your back expanding and contracting, and just recognizing the differences. So rather than thinking in terms of it should be like this or it should be like that, use this little set of movements to train yourself to recognize what is happening within the body, and also to train that facility of maintaining a sense of your thoughts being anchored within your body. One more round. Good, and then shake out. Really and truly, this idea of moving from the ground isn't unique to Tai Chi. We all do it. All animals do it. Even birds, to take off, need to push against something as a rule, most birds. Somebody, I was talking about this the other day to a group, and somebody came up to me after they were a squash player. Apparently, I don't play squash at all. Apparently, they actually tell you when you run to hit the ball, actually you deliberately bend your knees so that when you go to hit the ball, you do this. It's Wimbledon fortnight, so there'll be plenty of opportunity to watch the tennis players as they leap around the court and how they'll sink down for that extra power. They don't just stand there with stiff legs and go, "Oh, I'm going to hit the ball." So really, what we're doing is something that comes ideally would come quite naturally to human beings. We often lose that ability because it can be quite strong in the legs, apart from anything else. But also because we have this habit again focusing upwards all the time. We're going to change the stance from the parallel stance with the feet hip width apart. Turn one foot out, step forwards with the other, keeping the width of the step. So you can see the background between my legs there. And once again, moving the weight. I'm going to come closer. I don't want you to do it like this because it can be very hard on the knees and it's not correct anyway. But it's almost like I go back and I go down. And I wait until I feel my leg push me and I direct the movement forwards and I go down. Now, obviously, if I kept doing that, I'd end up sitting on the ground because I'm trying not to come up. But what we can begin to feel if we give ourselves time It's this sense of allowing the weight to press down through the leg, through the foot, and then feeling the leg expand and push us forwards or backwards, and the same thing on both feet. This can have a direct impact on our stability and our mobility because it can directly impact how we walk in everyday terms. So this is a really good exercise to practice. Probably that I would put money on this being the single most important exercise in Tai Chi, not just for people who are beginning. I've been doing this for over 40 years and I'm still working with this one exercise. Go into your back foot, raise your front toes a little bit. And then going forwards, it's very easy to lose this. I still lose it after all these years of practice. And I teach people who've been doing Tai Chi for 20 years or so, and they're still losing it. So there is a switch that will always take our attention to our arms, our shoulders, our head. And we're not trying to turn that switch off. We're just trying to make sure that it isn't the only thing that's working. And then stepping in. The good news is, with this exercise, if that switch turns on without you realizing it, you'll start to get all wobbly. So you'll have an immediate feedback about this. Now try that with the other foot forwards. Step through, transferring your weight. And then just pushing your back knee forward so your heel comes up. So more of your weight begins to settle through each leg. My front foot is slightly turned out, you may notice. We're looking to align ourselves with the pull of gravity over one leg to sink our center of gravity to root down. When we can do that, we're more stable. Stepping in. And when we're stable, we don't need to balance. So this isn't about balance, this is about moving with root and stability. And then step through. And change direction. It makes much more sense to allow our legs to carry the majority of the weight. Our backs have not evolved for that reason. So this is a much kinder way to move. So check out. Have your right foot forwards. In a way, this is a little bit of a test because it's a bit of a complicated exercise that does involve the arms and the hands and the center of the body, which can be a distraction if we're not careful. Start with your weight in your back foot. Turn to your right and swing your arms out a little bit like the wild goose. Come forwards, go into the front foot and settle into the front foot and turn to your left. This is Wind Blows the Willows. Think about the name of the movement. The willow tree has very deep roots. Moving the weight forwards, turning, feeling that pattern of expansion and contraction through your upper body. Rooted in the feet, transmitted through your legs, guided, directed, shaped through the center of your body. So that becomes a hugely important area of for the focus of your attention, and expressed through your upper body and your arms. One more on this side, going forwards. And then have your left foot forwards. Again, check that you've got enough width across your step so you don't feel as though you're sort of balancing on a tightrope. Start in your back foot, turn to your left, let that movement swing your arms out. And then going forwards. It may help you to just remember that pattern of movement within your body when you did the wild goose, both seated and standing, because it's very, very similar. But the main driver is going to be this movement from the ground, rising up through your body, shaped by your intention. Now this time, when you go forwards, push your back knee forwards, bring your foot in. You can do this going backwards, incidentally, if it suits you better that way. And then step forwards. Go forwards, and as you go forwards, turn to your left, raise the back heel, and bring the foot in. It's this dragonfly skims the water. You either keep the foot down like that, or if you're comfortable with this, raise the leg up. Bring your leg up. Focus on that feeling of dropping back in your hips. So dragonfly skims the water. I'm going to do one more in this direction and then change, go back. And then bringing your feet back. Go back to your chair. So our starting point was just a simple sitting posture. And whether we do it sitting or whether we do it seated, this posture encapsulates the qualities that we're trying to cultivate through all these different movements. Rooted down, aligned, supported, spacious, open, strong. Last exercise is called Embrace Tiger, Return to the Mountain. And the mountain is a lovely image of these qualities, I think. So this is, you let your hands drop down and push them out again. And this time, before they reach shoulder height, coming around as though they're going to hold a ball against your chest. Drawing in and coming back to the mountain. It can be useful to just notice what it is that brings you back. Whether it's the image of the mountain or some kind of sensation in your body. What is it that, when you go down the shops and find yourself caught in the queue, or something goes amiss, or you just maybe even have a trip or wobble, what would be the thing most useful to you at that point? One more round. And rest. Lovely, and open your eyes. Thank you very much for joining in, everybody. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me or get a hold of me one way or another. I'll do my best to answer them. Bye for now.